Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking Philly Sports with what's my name, Matty B program here on the Edge of Philly Sports. It is with your boy Matty B, and it is a honor and a privilege to be back with you on this Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. I hope that time changed it and throw a lot of people off, like it threw me off. I'm running into the house like 2 minutes ago, but it's great to be back. It is April 25th. 2023. And as you can see by my friend the balloon up there, that is a gift from my daughters who sent me a birthday present. Yesterday was my 21st birthday. You only turn 21 once, folks, and it was a great day. And for all those out there that sent me birthday wishes, I want to thank you. It was a great day, and I feel finally old enough, legal and all that. So yeah, 21 and feeling fine, folks. So this is a remnants of my birthday. But it's great to be back. It is awesome to be back. As I say this every week on this program, it is great to come with you and talk to you about my own brand of Philadelphia sports. And this is certainly a special week here in the Delaware Valley and across the landscape of the National Football League, because Thursday, the draft. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the draft. This is where hopes, dreams, aspirations, championships are won and lost on the stage there. And this time it's going to be in Kansas City. So this is, to me, truly the beginning of the football season. Everybody, let's to say everybody, I think, has their own kind of beginning of the season before the actual season starts. Mine is the draft. Totally has always been the draft. And Thursday, we get to kind of start this thing all over again. And the Eagles, of course, the talk of the town, as they always seem to be, no matter what time of the year it is, will be picking 10th and they will be picking 30th in the first round. They only have 6 picks total as of right now. And a whole bunch of questions now surrounding this team about what to do with with those draft picks. Now, if you look at next year's draft, which is I think always on people's minds, and it's always on Howie's mind. They're going to have I think right now it stands at 11 picks, but right now we have 6 picks, and we have more than our fair share of holes to fill in this team. For those of you who are familiar with me in this program, I take a no nonsense look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and specifically Howie Roseman in that vaunted brain trust, that he has to assemble a roster. And I've made no bones about it that I am not his biggest fan. Howie's, that is. I don't like the way he constructs teams. I don't like these 1-year contracts. I don't think that is a recipe for winning. That is a recipe for lightning in the bottle. And obviously, last year it worked out for us as we made it to the Super Bowl, but we lost it. And this year now we had 18 free agents. A lot of them moved on, rightfully so. I wasn't prepared to give the money that some of them were going to get and some of them got. We brought some people back in on 1-year contracts, and we're kind of washing and repeating this thing all the way through. But Thursday, the Eagles will have an opportunity to kind of look towards that future. Everybody taps Howie on the back, says you're one of the greatest wizards of the cap, wizards of trading, and all that. But one of the things that people don't say to Howie about Howie Roseman is his drafting ability, because it has not been good. It is not, and there's really no other way for me to put it out there than that. It has not been good. And with such prime draft real estate as the number 10 overall pick, 2 first-round picks, this is definitely one of them years, and it's really kind of, we say this every year. Was this the most important draft the Eagles have had or Howie has had? We say it every year. And, you know, I don't know if this is the most important draft in Eagles history. I don't. There are some holes that need to be filled in this team. The team now has a window to win, and they need to be smart about these draft picks. Obviously for the future, but for today too. And let's face it, last year's draft was less than stellar. Jordan Davis was a interesting pick at with their first round. Didn't really have the stamina. I know he was dealing with a high ankle sprain that cost him pretty much the second half of the season. But he was a non-entity in the playoffs. He was a non-entity in the Super Bowl. Nakobe Dean was a straight non-entity, as he barely saw the field. I think he was relegated to special teams. And yeah, So I understand that 1 year you cannot assess a draft, but I mean, I could go back to 2013 in the first Howie Roseman draft that he was associated with this team, and we can assess all day long, and it hasn't been good. Let's just kind of say what it is. It hasn't been good consistently. Has it been awful? No. I mean, he's found some gems there. He found some diamonds in the rough. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is one of those diamonds. And if you're sitting here telling me that you were all on board the Jalen Hurts train on when he was drafted 3 years ago, you're lying because nobody was. But Howie, being the smartest man in the room, did what he had to do. And he brought in a decent quarterback who is now taking over as our franchise quarterback. But with such limited capital, high value capital at 10 and 30 in the first round, but then only 4 picks after that. What do we do this year with the window of winning and also with the future in mind? And it's an interesting question that has been asked a lot, and it's going to be asked a lot more this week. And to help me figure it out tonight, I'm going to welcome back an old friend, folks, an old buddy, formerly of the Edge of Philly Sports Network. He was the host and co-creator of the Bird's IQ podcast that you can see and hear here on EOP. But he has moved on to greener pastures. He is now the midday producer, or the producer for the midday show on 94 WIP. Mr. Kyle Quinn will be joining me here in a few minutes, and we'll have an opportunity to get into Kyle's brain about what he feels that the Eagles are going to have to do to make themselves a little bit better in this draft. What are they going to do with 10? Are they going to draft Bijan Robinson? Are they going to draft Carter? Are they going to trade back? Are they going to trade completely out of that 30 spot? What are they going to do? Is Derrick Henry in the mix for another draft night trade with the Tennessee Titans? I mean, where are we at with this football team, and what are the Eagles going to do in the 2023 draft? Kyle will be joining me here in about 10 minutes, and we'll be talking about that. But in the meantime, we got some housekeeping to do. We got to get to our This Day in Philly Sports History thing here on the show. We do it every week, and we're not going to stop tonight. We're going to go all the way back to 1989, folks. 1989 for tonight's day in Philadelphia sports history, and it's on the ice. This is back when the Flyers were good, when the Flyers were actually a playoff team, and the Flyers actually played playoff hockey. And then on this night, Mario Lemieux. You guys remember Mario Lemieux, number 66? Way before Sidney Crosby, way before Malkin. It was all about Lemieux. He was the first wave of Pittsburgh Penguin resurgence. Him and Yager were the two individuals that brought Pittsburgh back on the map the first time. But Lemieux, who we hated Lemieux in this town as much as we hated Gretzky, not as much as we hated Crosby or hate Crosby, or not as much as we hate Ovechkin, but we definitely hated Lemieux. But the guy just did it with a lot more class than a lot of these others have done it with. And so you had to kind of tip your hat to him at the end of every night when you watched him play. Even though you might have hated him, you just had to tip your hat because he was a really fantastic player and he was a class act. But on this night in 1989, he went another level with it. He he had one of the most dominant nights against any Philadelphia professional sports team in the history of the city. It was a playoff game. He scored 4 goals in the first period of this game on this night back in '87. He would end up scoring 5 for the night and then chip in with 3 more assists, 8 points, which is all, the most goals in a playoff game, the most points in a playoff game, all are current records in the National Hockey League. And he did it against the Flyers on this night back in 1989. And of course, a few years later, I believe it was in '97, when his career was ending. It actually ended here in Philadelphia, and we had the opportunity to kind of tip our hats to Lemieux. And again, I was not at that game, but I was watching that game, and to get a standing ovation to Mario Lemieux, to a player that we hated, just again, it's because you had to tip your hat to the guy because that's the type of player he was and the type of man he was. So that is your night or your day in Philadelphia sports history. Mario Lemieux tearing apart the Flyers in the playoffs. The Flyers would actually go on and win that round of playoffs against the Penguins that year, but of course Lemieux definitely had his night tonight. All right, so let's get back into the show because we got a few other things to talk about before Kyle joins me here in about 10 minutes. Let's kind of transition a little bit to the baseball diamond. It's been a tumultuous start for the Fightin' Phils thus far in 2023. 11-12. They're coming off of a outstanding weekend series against the lowly Colorado Rockies, where they took 3 out of 4 from them, and they are now setting their sights on an interesting week. It's going to see the Mariners, the Astros, and Dodgers this week. So if everybody out there is still kind of concerned about the Phillies and doesn't know what the Phillies are, I have a feeling that you're going to have a better idea of what the Phillies are after this week because there's some interesting gauntlet for this team to have to run through. Starting tonight, actually, down there at CBP, and when I was last saw they were losing 1-0, but a very interesting gauntlet for the Phillies to have to run through as they begin the season or as they kind of um, get things going in the right direction. But um, I personally am not somewhat, I don't necessarily feel concerned, I guess, at 11 and 12 in April. I mean, this season or this month has kind of kind of taken root almost like it did last year. And the Phillies are dealing with a lot of adversity. A lot more than they thought that they were going to deal with starting the season. Losing Reese Hoskins, knowing that they were going to start without Reese or Bryce, losing Hoskins, not necessarily having the pitching rotation that they envisioned back in February when they were putting together this the rotation. Andrew Painter not really working out yet because of injury. Ranger Suarez, kind of set back because of injury. And things have not been easy for the Phillies. And there's been some questionable decisions in that dugout, and there's been a lot of questionable decisions on the base paths. So, all in all, if you're talking after everything I just talked about, and there's more detail to get into, to be 11 and 12 at this point, I'm not necessarily that overly concerned about it because it could be a lot worse. And I don't know, honestly, if it could be any better. But this week, this next, as you mentioned, three with Seattle starting tonight, three with Houston starting on Friday, and then three with LA starting next Tuesday is going to tell you a lot about the Philadelphia Phillies and what they're going to do, I think, going forward. And I think it's also going to tell you a lot about maybe some questions about certain players or coaches or managers. And I hate to say it like that, but that's just the reality of the business. But as we do here on the Fightins Final every night, and by the way, when tonight's game does go final, make sure you're tuning in here at the Edge of Philly Sports as we will be back with the Fightins Final, as we are every night. Um, we have an insight, obviously, to numbers. We have an insight to kind of looking at every play and looking in between the pitches, so to speak. And it's not, and as I said, doing it last year like I did by myself, essentially I was very detailed in what was happening with these games, and so when I look at the season as it is now, I'm not necessarily concerned. I'm not encouraged, but I'm not concerned. And yeah, we are 11 and 12, and it's not. It's something that we need to kind of figure out. Is there a trade in the works? Is this the team that's going to take us the rest of the way? Is this the team that's going to take us into the postseason this year? Is this the team that's gonna seal the deal? It doesn't look like that right now. There's a lot of baseball left to play. There's 5 months of it left. Things will change, things will evolve, and hopefully, we can kinda get our footing here, and this weekend, I think, went a long way. Now, tonight, they were struggling a little bit with the offense, and which has not been necessarily something new, but let's hope the Phillies can kinda dig themselves out of this early season kinda funk they're in, string together a couple of these series wins, get back to 500, which they're only a game out anyway, and really kind of start making a play for the division because last year we were relegated by the end of April, or I should say by the end of May. We were relegated to pretty much the wild card because we were so far back in our division. Now, it's not necessarily that type of division this year, as I believe they entered play tonight with 4 games behind the Braves and there's an opportunity to kind of stick in the divisional race. But that's why there's 3 wild card teams, right? And that's why we were the first benefactors of that in the biggest of ways, taking it all the way to the World Series. But I don't want to rely on that either. I think that um, we have an opportunity in the NL East to be the champs because it's still a little bit wide open for me. Yeah, I still believe it is, but the Phillies right now are not looking like that type of contender. But there's 5 months of baseball left. But this week, folks, mark my words, is going to go a long way in telling a little bit about what this team is heading into the very immediate future. Daniel says, "Hey, yo, what's up, Daniel? From Sports Highlights, what's up, man? How you doing? How you doing? Good that glad you chiming in. Are you looking for more podcasters? I am not the guy to ask that. You need to contact old Big Al over there on EOP. Just go searching him out. He's very he'll reach back to you. So just reach out to Big Al and ask him that question. He also asked Eagles on defense need to focus on guys who can cover and tackle, not just for the secondary, but the linebackers and defensive line to balance it out some. That's a question that's been asked about this football team for the last 30 years. This team has never focused on necessarily the second level of defense. They've always been more concerned with the upfront guys. They've always been more concerned about stopping the run. And it seems lately, when I mean lately, over the last 20 years, they don't even give a damn about the linebackers, and they certainly don't care about the secondary. And obviously, with the linebacker resurgence we had last year, it got everybody kind of excited, and we were able to see what a good linebacking core can do for a defense. Now, of course, this linebacking core now has completely been blown apart. Just about everyone's gone, and we're going to have to see how it looks in 2023. The front office needs to stop making it only about rushing the passer and sacks. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a great pass rush and getting a lot of sacks. It's super important for any defense. That's just basically what I said, and that just seems to be what the Eagles are going or have always not just within the recent past, but in the you know is that 15 years. They've always really valued up front and not so much second level defense. And it's been very frustrating. Been very frustrating. But last year was a nice change of pace because their second level of defense might have been at times better than their up front guys. And it definitely showed it showed. The Eagles were not a team that was victimized by the big play. They were not a team that could get gashed across the field. Now you're going to blame John Gannon for a lot of things that this defense gave up on. You're gonna blame on his scheme and all that. I don't fall on that sword. The players make the plays. The players are out there on the field. John Gannon isn't. So I'm not gonna blame John Gannon for any of that, but yeah. But they need to focus on guys who can cover and tackle all defensive positions. Stop getting overly focused and on wrapped up on pass rush. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. When the pass rush sacks aren't showing up, they need to be able to cover and tackle. Yes, I agree. We are all in 100% concurrence there. RW Swope 87. As we see in the Super Bowl when the pass and rush sacks weren't there, how awful is vulnerable. Yeah, no, it was, and you go back to those two very key plays down there at the goal line for Kansas City when they ran the same play, but just to different sides of the field and the same result, touchdowns. So, and that was really the game. That those two like plays to me were the game. And the Eagles were victimized, uh, you know, equally bad on both plays. And is that unit going to be better? I mean, we're bringing back Slay, bringing back Bradbury. We got a couple of new guys filling in safety and one new cornerback. I mean, is this group better than the group that stepped out last year? I don't know. I guess time will tell on that. Um, but these are all very valid points, and I agree with you. The Eagles have not focused enough on two level or second level defense. They've been really more concerned about what's up front, getting to the passer, disrupting the passer, and that. But last season was a great change of pace and all that because you saw how it would benefit the Eagles to get to have decent linebackers who can create something from their aspect. Maybe you can rush your linebackers. Maybe you drop them back in the pass coverage, which they did. They're opportunistic, forcing turnovers. It was great to see all that stuff last year from the Eagles. So I 100% agree with you. That is the direction that the Eagles may have to go as well. But um, it's very interesting. It's very interesting because at the end of last season, when I came on here, basically I never got on board with the Eagles last year because I just didn't think they were that good enough, and I really don't now heading into this season, barring the draft, and I know we have a long way to go here until we get to that point, and we're gonna talk all this with Kyle here in a few seconds, but what has this team done to improve themselves so far for 2023? What is the secret recipe here? Are they a better version of what they were when they got off the field in February in Kansas City or in Arizona? Are they a better team? Are they closer to winning a Super Bowl, or are they gonna take a step back? If you talk to a lot of people around town, it's a step back. It's a step back in the win-loss column. It's a step back in the playoffs. So, why are we saying that? Why should we say that? We have a great GM who supposedly builds champions, but why are we, like, consensusly saying that, "Oh, it might be a kind of a step back here?" Why? I don't understand. He's Howie Roseman. He yields his magic, but yet it's going to be a step back here. Why? Don't get it. I really don't. And as I said, we're going to have an opportunity to talk to Kyle Quinn a little bit about that. Um, who's better than us in the NFC? Okay, real Philly streets. I got you, brother. I'm not okay. So what is that trophy? So is that what we're going to align the NovaCare complex with NFC championships? Is that what you want? Because I want Lombardis. All right, I want Lombardi trophies. Are we better than the Kansas City Chiefs? No. Are we better than the Buffalo Bills? Maybe. Are we better than the Cincinnati Bengals? Maybe. All right. I give you the NFC all day long, but I want Lombardi trophies. I don't want to line. I don't want to line the trophies. I don't want to line the NovaCare complex with the NFC trophy. I want to line the NovaCare complex with Lombardi trophies. And speaking of Lombardi trophies, joining me here on the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B hotline, my main man. What can I say about this guy? What can I say? Um, he is formerly of the Edge of Philly Sports Network. He hosted it and he created or co-created the Birds IQ podcast, but he has gone off to greener pastures as a full-time producer now with the midday show on 94 WIP. Kyle Quinn joins me. Kyle, what's up?
What's going on, Matty B? Thanks for having me on, buddy.
No,
Glad to talk to you.
it is absolutely my privilege and my honor, Kyle. All right, Kyle. We're gonna dig into some things tonight, and I'm gonna do it sort of kind of in order. So please bear with me. I know this is draft week. This might be one of the biggest weeks in football. To me personally, this signifies the true beginning of the season. What does draft week necessarily signify for you, Kyle? Is it a rebirth of the football season? How do you look at draft week?
I look at draft week as an opportunity, and I think I've been trained as an Eagles fan to look at it that way because of what our GM's been able to pull off on draft night, not just by moving around, but by turning some picks into what have been some pretty outstanding players for us in the past. I mean, moving around to get Devontae Smith, trading picks to get AJ Brown. So draft week, I think, is it's the opportunity to add to the team in a variety of different ways, and I'm excited to see what the Eagles come away with.
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. And we're going to get to the draft. But before we got to get to the draft, let's get to the appetizer. Actually, let's get to the soup. Last time me and you spoke was the pregame for the Super Bowl. We haven't had an opportunity to talk a little bit about what happened and all that. So very briefly, Kyle, I want to go back in time with you because I took a lot of flack for picking against the Eagles. And of course, I was correct that the Eagles were not a good enough team to dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs. I stand by that. And obviously now, obviously I was vindicated and I am right. But I was not enjoying it. I was very upset that the Eagles lost that game, and then with very winnable Super Bowl to boot. Kyle, what in your opinion happened in the Super Bowl with the Eagles?
It just sucked. I mean, the ball didn't bounce the Eagles' way like it did in Super Bowl 52. And sometimes when you're talking about a game just coming down to one game in a game that the Eagles did, in fact, have the better all-around team than the Kansas City Chiefs. Sometimes it just comes down to the ball bouncing your way, and the ball didn't bounce the Eagles' way. Now, obviously, the defense got ran all over by the Chiefs, which is uncharacteristic of the team going into that game. And the defense has been one of the top defenses in the league all year, and some weird things were happening with the field. Not making excuses for why the defense didn't play well, but that was just another one of those weird things that happened. And then they didn't get that one defensive stop like they did against Brady in Super Bowl 52. And Jalen Hurts, besides playing an otherwise fantastic game, had a really fluky fumble that ended up giving the Chiefs 7 points in a game that we only lost by a few. So you throw that in with what happened at the very end of the game. Yeah, I mean it's the Super Bowl. It's one game. It's why they say that you don't play the game on paper. You actually have to go out there and play it. And I do believe the Eagles went in there as the better team. They just didn't come away with the win. And I mean it sucks, but that's the way it is. And I think I'm finally at a point where I'm getting over it. But I guess here we are.
Yeah, here we are, Kyle. Absolutely. Here we are in April, and here we are a couple of days from the draft, Kyle. But the next question to me, or to me, from me to you is 18 free agents entering into this past free agency period. Most of them have left. We've gotten some few, and we'll talk of some of the ones that were brought here and some of the ones that left as well. Right now, before we get into details about this team, is this football team better than the one that walked off the field in Arizona?
Well, I don't see any way that they possibly could have been. I think that's an unrealistic expectation to set, especially considering that a team went into the season and ended the season with the overall best roster in football. I mean, they didn't have a hole besides, if you want to bring up punter and punt returner. But other than that, I mean, they had a top player at every position. So I think to expect that they were going to come out of that season and end up somehow being a better overall team in every area is just unfair. So no, I mean, definitely not. But I will say that I think they didn't lose as many guys as I thought they were going to lose in terms of top end guys. I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, whatever, he's a safety. I think they'll be able to find ways to replace that production back there. Javon Hargrave hurts, yeah, but the Eagles are clearly banking on their young player in Jordan Davis and being able to fill that in some sort of a rotational capacity with Milton Williams and the newly signed Kentavious Street. But they were able to keep Bradbury and Slay, so the secondary with all three corners now, with Maddox, of course, has been signed, and they're still pretty strong back there. And then, of course, you can't discount the growth that Jalen Hurts is going to have with some of the guys on offense. And you still have Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. So the Eagles are not like, that they didn't get decimated after the Super Bowl, like I think the picture that you're trying to paint here is. But I think they're going to be just fine next season. That's what you're getting at.
I'm not trying to paint it. I'm painting it. And my point to that is, or my point to you with this is, when you look at the defensive line, you're bringing back Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. You throw in a repaired Derek Barnett, and then you're hoping Jordan Davis can last the whole season without getting hurt, or potentially, I don't know if there was conditioning issues involved in him last year. I know he had that high ankle sprain that really bugged him through about a half season. Kyle, I'm not really necessarily doing back springs about the defensive line right now. And is that a real concern, or am I just, looking at it from my side of the road?
Well, I think what I'll say to that is, I mean, it's April, right? I mean, you remember the feeling of this team and what the roster looked like before the draft last season? I mean, it was just our only signing there for a time was Hassan Reddick, and everybody was kind of like, what the hell's going on here? Like they're kind of asleep at the wheel. And then all of a sudden the draft, they trade for A.J. Brown, and they end up making some moves for James Bradbury and Gardner Johnson, which happened in May and I think August, respectively. So I would just say that there's a lot of time, and the Eagles did end up structuring this Jalen Hurts contract to the point where they can now surround him with players like they did last season and the year before on his, he's still on his rookie deal. So I would just say, try to be a little bit patient, because they come through for you before with decent rosters. So, I mean, right now it might look like that, but there's plenty of time and plenty of opportunity for them to build.
All right, Kyle, let's get into that opportunity. They brought in some free agents, so I'm not going to go into all of them. I'm going to target two. Rashad Penny is the first one I want to target. He has been brought here to replace Miles Sanders for the moment. We don't know what necessarily might happen Thursday or beyond. But if you look at that running back room now with Rashad Penny, Kenny Gainwell, and Boston Scott, is it an upgrade or is it a downgrade as of right now?
Well, right now you can't call it anything but a downgrade. I mean, Miles Sanders had a pretty decent season last year, and Rashad Penny has been injured more games, I think, than he's ever played. And, I have Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, they're fine little gadget players, but they're not any guys that I want being the head of the backfield if Rashad Penny does end up getting hurt like he should to do in years past. I mean, if think about it, if that happens, then it is just Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott. So, do I think there's upside with Rashad Penny? Absolutely, because if you look at his numbers, yards per carry wise, when he was healthy, and he was a former first round pick, he's a pretty decent little player, but that health is a huge question mark there. So, I mean, I would say that's a downgrade.
And then the other position group I want to look at real quick, and then we'll move on to the draft while you came here, is a secondary. And I'm going to include the safety position in that, or the safety group there, as well. As you mentioned, James Bradbury is back. And then they also were able to restructure and re-sign Darius Slay. But they also lost, Gardner Johnson. They lost Marcus Epps. Maybe not necessarily big, huge news there. But we ended up bringing in a couple of players to fill that void. Terrell Edmonds, the free agent brought in from Pittsburgh. And then Greedy Williams, the cornerback, brought in from Cleveland. Right now, when you look at that secondary group, mind you, Bradbury and Slay are 1 year older, and you add in those other individuals that I mentioned, upgrade or downgrade right now?
Well, I mean, I guess the Gardner Johnson thing, you would have to call it a downgrade, but that's not really, I think that one's more marginal than anything. The Gardner Johnson thing was kind of weird to me, and something that rang alarms in my head was the value of the safety market around the league, and specifically for him. I mean, he was getting lowballed left and right, clearly to a point where him and his agent were tweeting out that they were feeling disrespected. So the whole Gardner Johnson thing, it was kind of weird to me. I do, once again, I think there's plenty of time for the Eagles to add to the safety room, and I don't think they're done addressing that. So, I mean, yeah, as of right now, as of April, yeah, it's easy to point at a lot of different areas and say that something's a downgrade.
Okay, Kyle, and then let's look at the offense. As you mentioned, the big contract, Jalen Hurts, much deserved contract that he got. Obviously, we found the franchise quarterback, hopefully, because images and thoughts of Carson Wentz did ring in my head when I heard about that contract. But you know what? You can't do that. It's not fair to Jalen Hurts. It's not fair to Carson Wentz. It's not fair to Howie Roseman. You gotta do what you got to do when you have that opportunity. And I think the Eagles did the right thing with Jalen in that contract. Offensively speaking, I don't know if any group or any unit out there is better than the Eagles right now, with maybe the exception at the running back position. But you know, with the defense kind of up in limbo, let's move on to the final piece of this puzzle, the draft, and only six picks in this draft. Do the Eagles address that defense, or do they rely totally on maybe just outscoring their opponents and just hoping to God their defense can hang in there?
Well, I think at least in terms of the top picks, and I'm sure we'll get into this a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's going to get into this about what they should do at 10. I think that's where I really do think the Eagles should focus on surrounding Jalen Hurts with as many weapons and as many pieces for him to stay upright as possible. So I think the Eagles should double down on offense. Honestly, I mean, you look at the way the Super Bowl was won by the Chiefs. The Chiefs were able to run the ball on us, and we weren't able to run it at all. So it does seem weird, but the NFL is sort of cyclical in that way. And right now, I think the NFL is at a point where teams are sort of daring you to try and make big plays on them, and that's where teams are going to start countering and just punching it right up your gut. So I think this is becoming this weird, like, limbo area offensive league where it's just try to put up as many points as you possibly can, like almost like some sort of like Madden game, and just run your opponent off the field. So I think, honestly, the Eagles should embrace that, and I think the Eagles have shown in the past that they've sort of been like the pioneers of some of these movements in the NFL, and I think now would be the perfect time for them to front that movement once again.
And with the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select who?
Well, I think it's going to be Young, but I mean, God, I don't know if you saw all that weirdness that was happening today with I don't know, somebody on Reddit posted that Will Levis was telling people that he was going to be the pick with the Panthers, and then the sports books adjusted accordingly, because I'm sure people are betting it one way. So yeah, just one of those weird things. But yeah, I mean, I guess I will stick to what I think I've been hearing all before that. I'll stick with the Bryce Young.
All right, let's get through all this, and let's go right on down to number 10. We saw it last year, Kyle, when the Eagles had, what was it, 3 first-round picks, ended up only selecting, I believe, was it 1, and then trading the others last year. This year, we were back in the top 10 again with New Orleans' first-round pick, a pick that we got over the summer, which was highly talked about and tracked all season long, of course. Now it ended up at 10, and the big story around town is, what do you do with 10? Bijan Robinson or Carter? I'm gonna, and maybe there's a third person for you, Kyle, Quinn, or a fourth option or a third option. We're gonna go with this a little bit of a systematically. What are the pluses of drafting Bijan Robinson with that 10th overall pick for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Oh, well, I could drop a take bomb on you right here and right now. I mean, well, I'll start this by saying that I'm not usually one to say that taking a running back in the first round is a good idea, but I at this point, I'm starting to think that it might be a mistake if the Eagles don't draft Bijan Robinson with the 10th pick if he's there. And I'll put it to you this way, and I'll give you this example, because I thought it was dumb when the Giants took Saquon Barkley, the number 2 overall pick, and I still do. And that's because the Giants were 3-13 the year before, and they earned that number 2 pick by earning the number 2 pick in the draft, and they had tons of other holes they needed to fill in the draft. And taking Saquon Barkley was just not, a very smart idea for them at the time. Similar to the Cowboys, who took Zeke at number 4. Now Zeke, turned out to be a pretty damn good player for them, and he was their offense for quite a while. But even their owner would admit that he thought they probably could have, used other things at that spot, because they were 4-12 the year before, and they earned that number 4 overall pick. The Eagles got this 10th overall pick because they fleeced the Saints out of a first-round pick last season. and they're coming off of being the Super Bowl runner-up, and both you and I know how difficult it is for a Super Bowl runner-up to go back to the Super Bowl. How difficult it is to really go back to a Super Bowl, regardless. I mean, if you're at the top, it's just the nature of the NFL is that the gap sort of closes, and windows can slam shut. And, can really only, I think, at this point, it's only you're really only doing yourself favors looking at this point at the 10th pick as being an opportunity to give you immediate impact, right? And I'm sure you share this view, is that the gap in the NFC, I mean, the Eagles were far and ahead away of a lot of the NFC teams last year. That gap is closing a little bit, right? So I just think the 10th pick right now is an opportunity staring you blank in the face for you to sort of give this team a shot in the arm and separate yourself from that pack just a little bit once again, and see if you can just give yourself another little boost that the 2018 Eagles didn't have after the 2017 season, and see if you can push yourself over the top, because Bijan Robinson's not just a running back. I mean, he's like a weapon, right? Like, he's getting McCaffrey comps, he's getting Debo Samuel comps. So I just think putting him in this offense will be like almost overkill for defenses. So I'm just looking at it as what kind of impact can I get year one, maybe year two, and year three. And I think defensive tackles for the Eagles, especially, take a few years to give you that kind of impact. Running backs for pretty much every team give you that impact right away. So I know you probably didn't ask for it, but there's my whole spiel.
No,
taking Bijan Robinson at 10.
Kyle, I'm actually impressed because I share your sentiments almost to the T. And a lot of people, like, one of the things that I've heard that's negative about drafting a running back, not necessarily Bijan Robinson, but a running back as a position at number 10 is why you want to pay that position, or why you want to pay that player in a position that's not necessarily valued anymore in the NFL. And I'm like, well, who says they got to pay him? I mean, he comes off his rookie year, does his 5 years, and then we let him go. I mean, no one's saying they got to re-sign him. No.
And you can't even really bother me about 5 years from now, right? Like, what the hell is this team going to look like 5 years from now? Is Devontae Smith going to be here? Is AJ Brown going to be here? I mean, like, who knows if like, God forbid, what happens with Jalen Hurts? We saw what happened with Carson Wentz. It's just too tough to predict 5 years from now. So I think you're doing yourself the biggest favor by just taking that opportunity when it's right there in the face.
Yeah, I agree. I do have one question about Bijan, and that's really just a minor one about Texas and the Big 12. I don't know if that was really what was he rushing against quality NFL programs. That to me I don't necessarily know if that's a big enough red flag there. What did you see from him in college that makes you feel he's that next level guy?
Yeah, I don't think about the Big 12 thing too much. I mean, we do have a quarterback on our team who played in the Big 12.
Yep.
One named Jalen Hurts, who just signed a nice little mega deal. I seem to recall a nice little running back named Adrian Peterson who played in the Big 12 as well. So I think when you're talking about running backs, you see the talents there. Running backs, I think in general, besides like your Trent Richardsons of the world, could be pretty bust-proof, especially in a draft where I think a lot of the experts, as you hear them, say that he's one of the safest picks in the draft, and he's one of the few blue-chip talents that are in the draft. So yeah, I'm honestly at a point I think it would be like it's just the right move. It's the right thing to do.
And what are any negatives, if there are any negatives, that you see in drafting Bijan at number 10?
Yeah, well, I mean, he could just be, like if Jahmyr Gibbs turns out to be a better running back than him, right? I mean, like everyone could have just completely whiffed on the evaluation of Bijan. And then I don't know. I really don't see too many negatives of it, to be honest, because if he stinks, you have the 30th overall pick, right? Like you also have the other pick. They didn't have the 30th pick too. This might be a little bit of a different discussion for me, but the fact that they have all these other picks, they have 12 picks next year. I mean, they have tons of opportunity to add to this team. I just think that this gamble is so worth it. It's such a no-brainer.
All right, let's move to the other player that seems to be dominating people's minds, and that's Jalen Carter from the University of Georgia. A difference maker on the defensive side. We have a need for that type of player on our defensive front. There's some character questions, I guess, being brought up. What are your positives about drafting Jalen Carter with that number 10 overall pick, Kyle?
Yeah, well, the positive of Jalen Carter, he's also, like Bijan, considered one of the, I think, three or four blue chip players in the draft. Depends on if you want to throw the quarterback in there. But Will Anderson, him, and Bijan are considered the top three talents of the draft. Now, of course, as you mentioned, mentioned, there are off-the-field concerns about Jalen Carter, but there are some on-field concerns about him as well. I mean, you saw him show up to his pro day overweight, and you have questions about whether he's given it his 100% on every snap. So he might be a guy that, somebody to kind of get up his behind a little bit and get him going. And, who knows? I mean, I just, I guess I'm now getting into the negatives here, but
No, go ahead.
bringing someone like that into the locker room, a locker room that's as tight as the Eagles are, and a locker room that's about competing constantly. I mean, you hear Nick Sirianni yabbering on about it every day. I'm not sure that that's a fit, but and then back to the positives, he's really talented player at a position of need. I mean, there's no question about it, because who knows about Jordan Davis, right? I mean, he is a question mark. We'll just have to wait and see about him. But yeah, you do take him, then you are anchoring a defensive tackle spot, almost like you're replacing Fletcher Cox to a degree. So those are, I guess, both the positives and negatives for you.
Would you look at Jalen Carter more as a pick for the future or more of a pick for today?
Yeah, I think he's definitely more of a pick for the future, especially considering, I mean, and I'm sure you'd love to harp on this with me too, is the Eagles' history of picking defensive linemen is either, bad to take a little bit, right? I mean, even Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, like those guys, you're not in love right away, and then not even to mention your Marcus Smith, your Derek Barnett. So taking, I think, a defensive tackle for the Eagles, honestly, I think the Eagles should stick with their methodology of, like, look at the team last season, right? The team that was in the Super Bowl. The offense with 10 of 11 guys were drafted by the Eagles, and the defense was, a bunch of guys that they managed get in different ways. I think that is clearly Howie's strength, is building the team in that way, and I think he should just honestly continue to do that. So that sort of goes back to why I think they should just double down and focus on offense in this trade.
Okay, and no, and I think that, again, that's a sentiment that I kind of share with you as well. The window won't be open forever. We have already seen how fleeting those windows can close. I mean, we saw it back in 17; it closed in a matter of 2 years. And you got to take advantage of this team is in a lot better shape than that 17 team was going forward, especially offensively. Definitely 100%. There's no questions there. But with all that being said, Kyle Quinn, with the 10th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select.
It's going to be Bijan, dude. I'm starting to be convinced that it is going to be Bijan, because you know why? I think Howie's a smart guy, and he was talking about the other day at his press conference at 10. You need to get a unique player. And a unique player, to me, does that scream offensive lineman to you, Matt? Do you think Howie's going to be able to turn around and spin an offensive lineman as a unique player, especially a guard or someone that's going to be sitting on the bench? And I can't really see that about a defensive lineman either. I mean, that answer to me screams Bijan Robinson. And you can say Howie's playing poker all he wants, but I think nobody has any idea what the hell he's doing in the draft, because it's going to be a freaking running back, baby. Sign me up. It's going to be Bijan. In the card.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I want to go with Bijan as well as my number 10 pick. But as you mentioned, Howie is the big wild card here. We never really quite know what he's going to do. The Jalen Hurts, or not Jalen Hurts, but the Jalen Regers of the world, the Derek Barnetts of the world.
Too, man.
Well, yeah, and the Jalen, that's right, and Jalen Hurts of the world as well. He's never, and then of course the trading for bringing AJ Brown in last year, all that stuff is definitely still in play. Definitely is still a possibility that he goes completely off what script that we seem to think that he's going to go on and does his own thing. I think the only time I got Howie right was in 2021 when he picked up Devontae Smith. That was the only time I got Howie right, and out of all the years that I've been looking at this. So you never know with the guy, and I don't know that, and I cannot believe I'm sitting here saying that, but you never know with the guy, and he does at times pull something out of his hat. But Kyle, he has not been consistently a good drafter. It is one of his weaknesses, if not the only one. A lot of people want to give him all the props in the world for his contract ability and his trading ability, which is evident over the last 2 or 3 seasons to be very good. But his drafting has not been very good. We got 2 picks on this team from last year's draft. Now, granted, you can't assess a draft in one season, but Nakobe Dean never saw the field, and Jordan Davis left the field. And there were your first round, third round pick respectively. We got to have more production. We only have 6 picks, Kyle. Does that come into play at all in this, and Howie's selection ability and the way he wheels and deals in 2023?
I mean, I'm sure it will, but I'm sure he's going to find a way around it. And the reason those guys didn't play last year is because the team was so good. And the team was so good is because, maybe Howie's not the best drafter, but he's a really good team builder. And that's why the team's found themselves in the Super Bowl twice, and you know the story in 5 years. So,
yeah, I know.
I mean, you get back and forth on it all the time. But I mean, look, I like I said earlier, just I would say be patient. The draft and plenty of opportunity after the draft for us to add to this team, and we have a lot of cap flexibility now with Jalen Hurts. So I would just say sit back and wait, because the Eagles are not going to be. They're not. I really do think the Eagles are looking at this the same way that me and you do, and that they are looking at this as an opportunity, and they need to go capitalize on a window that could close on at any minute. So.
And now with the pick in the draft that no one's really talking about, because everyone's kind of already in their mind traded it away, because that's what everyone seems that the Eagles are going to do. But I'm not necessarily sold that the Eagles are going to trade away that 30 pick overall, Kyle. Again, 6 picks in the draft. I get it. You could probably maybe maneuver 2, maybe, I don't know, if you're an outside shot at 3rd pick additional in this draft. I don't know, but Kyle, where are you staying on that 30 pick? Are you traded it? Have you traded it away? Or are you using it?
Well, look, I here's what I'll say, and a lot of people are talking about trading back, get more picks, but I think people are forgetting about the fact that Howie also has shown that he's not scared to move up and pull the trigger when he sees a guy that he likes. He did it for Devontae Smith. He did it for Carson Wentz. He sees someone that he really likes, and he thinks he has to jump somebody to go get him. He might throw that 30th pick in with the 10th pick and see if he can move up and try and get in front of somebody to get them. So I wouldn't rule out any of those possibilities with Howie. I think this is one of those wild card drafts. And I mean, honestly, there's so many reasons to be excited about it, because, the whole Bijan Robinson thing, I really hope that's a possibility for the Eagles. I'm getting myself way too worked up about it over these past few weeks. But, I'm super pumped for it, man.
Yeah, I can hear it, Kyle. I've never heard you this excited about a draft before. Honestly, I mean, wow.
The Jalen Reagor one.
Oh, well, yeah.
remember how badly I wanted Jalen
Reagor? I do remember that, Kyle, and you got your wish. Anyway, so moving on.
Probably doesn't bode too well for Bijan.
No, I hope not. So does the now that we had some change in the coaching staff over the offseason, Desai is the new defensive coordinator and Brian Johnson is the new offensive coordinator. Does that factor into any of this at all, or is this necessary? Because obviously Desai's bringing in a scheme, that hybrid 4-3, that hybrid 3-4, whatever he ran there in Baltimore. What they call it, they called it the hybrid 46, whatever they were referring to it as. But does that alter maybe the selection of possibly Jalen Carter, or does Brian Johnson want to, are they trying to give Brian Johnson as many tools as they can give him to be successful his first year as offensive coordinator? What do you think that factors at all in this?
I think Jalen probably plays more of a factor than Brian Johnson does, at least in terms of when you're talking about who they might be looking to make decisions on who they might select. I think they would go to Jalen Hurts, Brian Johnson's probably taking his directive from Jalen Hurts when it comes to that kind of thing. And at least on the other side of the ball, I really do think, and this is going to be disappointing to hear for a lot of people, I think the Eagles were just looking for somebody to basically run a very similar defense to what Jonathan Gannon ran last season. So if you were going to ask about if that affects on the other side of the ball, I don't think it does at all. I think they're going the same way, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. And as we talked about, so secondary linebacker safeties have been really a position of need for years in this team, and we got a really great treat, or at least I did last year, by seeing what a good secondary and a good defensive or linebacker core can actually do for you throughout most of the season. But, a lot of things are not looking necessarily up for that position group or the defense as a total, but we both agree that maybe this might be the year that the Eagles try to outscore teams. Kyle, when you look at the overall, should people be excited about 2023? Is there going to be unrealistic high expectations on this team in 2023? And is Nick Sirianni going to press with those expectations? What do you see at the very early stages of this offseason for 2023 and the Eagles?
I mean, I don't see why anybody shouldn't be pumped about a team that was just in the Super Bowl. The NFC is still ripe for the picking. I mean, I know we were just talking about the gap sort of closing a little bit, but Jalen Hurts is still by far the best quarterback in the NFC, especially now with Aaron Rodgers leaving. So there's plenty of opportunity for the Eagles to go back and make another deep playoff run. So yeah, I mean, just there's zero need, Matt, to be starting to poo-poo this whole season freaking in April, buddy. All right, we're gonna be all right.
No, I'm not. Listen, Kyle, I'm enjoying my post Howie, like not having to talk about him, but unfortunately I'm running out of time, and I need to jump right back into it. I'm not sold. I'm as less sold now than I was last season, and I was way out last season. But hopefully they bring me back in, and I think Bijan Robinson will go a long way in getting me back in. I'm not a fan of the 1-year contract, Kyle. Never will be. I don't think you build sustained winning that way. I don't care what year of the NFL this is. You build it through the draft. You build it through longevity. Howie has not shown me that his ability to do that. He is more looking for that quick fix. I don't think that's how you build a dynasty. And I want a dynasty. And I hate to say this, we didn't win anything last year. Okay, we didn't. We didn't really win anything. And that's the reality of it. And the way I see it.
You are just the worst.
Why am I the worst? Why? Because I look at things without my Eagle sunglasses on.
No, because you're just waiting at any opportunity to pounce. I mean, the Eagles were the best team in the league by far until literally one day. And you waited for that one day for you to finally say, I was right.
Was it one day, Kyle?
Right.
Kyle,
you
was
weren't right, Matt. You were wrong, okay? The Eagles kicked ass, and they just freaking lost one game, and it just happened to be the Super Bowl. Get over it.
No, they lost. It wasn't one day. It was one team. They lost to the only team that was any good. They played last year, and I don't care what you.
It was one day.
It was one team, a better team, and again, I'm not saying they didn't belong there. Don't mix my words up. I'm not saying they didn't belong in the Super Bowl. They did. They did what they had to do to get there, but they were paper champions. They were not. They were not at the same level as the Kansas City Chiefs. They weren't.
Ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous.
Team than the Chiefs. They lost by 3 points, Matt. The quarterback fumbled and gave the other team 7.
Kyle, but
I don't know where you're arriving at this.
I'm really Pat Mahomes is limping off the field at halftime, then he comes back and throws for like 500 yards in the second half.
No, Matt, Pat Mahomes threw for 180 yards in that game.
You know what I mean. You got my point.
I don't know what you
mean. Yes,
you
do.
Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes. I'm telling you. Like, I mean, I don't know how you walk away from that Super Bowl thinking that the Chiefs were the better team. Some freaking fluky loss.
Well,
tired of you, Pat.
The hardware says that they were the better team, but
I'm tired of your propaganda, man.
But we're getting ready of my propaganda. Holy crap! So we're getting ready to start this thing up. Kyle Quinn, tell the people where they can find you on a 5-day-a-week basis.
Yeah. So WIP 94.1 FM on your dial. So you'll hear me on the midday show, Julio and you.
Wow. Listen, Kyle, personal congratulations. Much deserved. You definitely are the right man for that job, and I'm proud of you. And keep reaching upwards, Kyle, because there's no stopping you now, brother.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. I'm not officially announcing anything technically, but
I understand.
But I appreciate your well wishes, my friend.
Absolutely, Kyle. Listen, we got to talk again soon, all right?
Yep. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
See ya. All right, that was Kyle Quinn. As always, kind of going at it with me, and I appreciate it. I really do. I always appreciate Kyle's 2 cents worth. So, folks, listen. Bijan Robinson, Jalen Carter, whoever it is, geez, the balloon's gone. Here, I'll hold it. I got it right here. Happy birthday. Bijan Robinson or Jalen Carter, or they trade. Does Howie pull off another AJ Brown-esque type trade with that 10 pick, or with the 30 pick, or does he do something extremely drastic and trade both of them, come completely out of the first round and go back further in the draft? What are they going to do? Well, we're going to find out here in a couple of nights. And don't forget, here on the Edge of Philly Sports, we got you covered with all that. We got the drama, we got the talent, we got the unscripted, we got the future is now. And here is the schedule so that you know where exactly to find us. As you can see, Thursday starting at 7:30, all complete first round draft coverage. Friday at 6:30, we got you covered for the second and the third round. And then on Sunday at 4 p.m., we are going to wrap it all up and throw in some, I think, UDFA type stuff too, because that'll be time to talk about them and everything else. But if you can't wait till Thursday, why should you, folks? Head over to our website, edgeofphillysports.com, and check out all the articles that are currently up and that are going up. Head over to our YouTube channel and all the shorts, all the draft stuff that we've been doing. Nobody has you covered for the NFL draft like the Edge of Philly Sports does. And nobody has you covered for Wiffle Ball Mania than Delco, or than Dolan, sorry. May 13th, what is that? 1 to 8. Look at who's going to be at the Wiffle Ball Mania at Dolan's on May 13th. Charlie Manuel, Mickey Morandini, Jamie the Philly Sports Guy, and Mr. Hollis Thomas. Please check that out. It's a fun event for everybody. I may be in the house as well. Please check it out. And if you're not going to go to the Wiffle Ball Mania, don't forget to go to Dolan's. Quizzo, music, great times, memorabilia giveaways, and you don't know who might walk through the front door at Dolan's. If you're looking for those hard-to-find tickets for great prices and no hidden fees, look no further than Sherry's Ticket Town at www.sherrystickets.com. Family-owned and operated since 1946. Save an additional 10% when you enter the promo code EOP10. And yeah, one last one. Workman's comp, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, or criminal law. No one's got you covered like Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300, www.cherryinjurylaw.com. When you call Dave, tell him Matty B, Top of Philly Sports with Matty B, and EOP Central. Folks, I want to again thank everybody out there for their great birthday wishes for me. It was a great day. I didn't turn 21, I turned 50. So it's hard to turn 50. You know, it's hard for someone who looks like this to turn 50 or to look at himself as a 50-year-old, because obviously I wasn't what I was looking at when I was looking at 50-year-olds when I was younger. It's a hard pill to swallow, all right? But I'm dealing with it, and it's all good. But it made it a lot easier with all the well wishes from everybody out there, and I definitely appreciate it. Thank you for all of your warm thoughts and your sentiments on my birthday yesterday. Here's the 50 more years. But listen, that's going to kill me for the week. Make sure you're sticking around for everything that we got here on the Edge of Philly Sports. Fighting's final is coming up here. Probably, I have no idea what's going on with the game, but I'm sure it's coming on soon. And everything else that we're doing, especially for the draft. Until we talk again, folks, that is the news, and I'm out of here.